populist candidates and you'd pre-commit the populist candidates to support the candidates who won the primaries, as long as that took place and you had two candidates that were both acceptable to the international order, that is, that they aren't going to rethink NAFTA or NATO or what have you, we called that democracy. And so democracy was the illusion of choice, what's called magician's choice, where the choice is not actually, pick a card, any card, but somehow the magician makes sure that the card that you pick is the one that he knows. In that situation, you have magician's choice in the primaries, and then you'd have the duopoly field two candidates, either of which was acceptable, and you could actually afford to hold an election. And the populace would vote, and that way the international order wasn't put at risk every 4 years, because you can't have alliances that are subject to the whim of the people in plebiscites.
We will fight hard to defend the freedom of opportunity that makes the American dream possible. We will fight hard for the freedom to vote.
I still love that clip. Yeah, and that was Eric Weinstein talking about how the New World Order, the deep state, is never going to subject themselves to the whims of anyone that gets in. And that's why I've always said, I always will say, the presidency is completely controlled, no matter what we want to think. I know people don't want to think that, but I think that's our reality. So, I go with reality. KrisAnne Hall, how are you? I'm so glad to have you on the show today.
Oh, thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah.
I think it's one of my favorite times in the week.
Aw, you're so nice. I really appreciate you. Are constitutional an expert on attorney, and libertyfirstsociety.com and KrisAnneHall.com. And I'm excited to have you.
Not always the most favorite person in the conservative realm, I must, out of full transparency, admit.
Well, you know what, though? I think people are seriously finally getting it. that the sides
Except
are
with
very
immigration.
controlled. Yeah.
Sorry, I disagree. Except with immigration.
Ah, why? Tell people why.
Well, because there's this, first off, there's this, I don't mean to take us off the topic.
No, you're fine. No, I think it's great. Talk about it.
There's this misunderstanding about immigration law, right?
Okay.
They think it's like a speeding ticket. You're doing 75, you're okay. You're doing 76, you need to get a ticket, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's just not like that. Immigration law is extremely complicated, extremely complex, and oftentimes quite unpredictable and arbitrary based on the discretion that is allowed in certain situations. So you have these situations where everybody's screaming, illegals coming across the border, illegals coming across the border, we need to arrest everybody and deport everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's really great. The problem is we now have a situation where ICE is literally sweeping up legally people here.
I see.
People who are legally in the United States, denying them the right to an attorney,
mm-hmm.
denying them any kind of due process, and then forcing them under duress
mm-hmm.
to sign to sign voluntary departure agreements.
Okay.
It's just nuts. And so what happens is you get the two realms fighting each other, which I really, really think, you know how I am.
Mm-hmm.
How do you destabilize a government? You don't destabilize a government by the politicians. You destabilize the government by the people.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it was like they brought in these illegal aliens to destroy America. Well, what if they brought in the illegal aliens to destabilize America? What
mm-hmm.
if they brought in all the illegal Americans, all the illegal aliens, rather,
mm-hmm.
so that the Americans will agree that the government is the sole arbiter of who gets rights and who doesn't, and who gets due process and not. Because now you've got a battle between the ACLU
mm-hmm.
and Border Patrol, because they've been doing this. They've been collecting up people who are actually legally in the United States. And let's be very clear, people who have gone through the immigration process to legally be here.
Okay. Does that
and
mean...
then I have to hear...
Mm-hmm. I was just going to ask if that means full, citizenship, or here temporarily on a visa.
It could be a legal permanent resident, meaning you have a green card,
mm-hmm.
which is the step before citizenship.
Okay.
It could mean that they're legally here on a visa.
Okay.
We have people who work in corporations on visas. We have people who work in churches on visas.
Mm-hmm.
Visas are a massive immigration industry that costs tens of thousands of dollars to do. It can cost, it can involve
Mm-hmm.
years of application and process.
Mm-hmm.
And people are doing this. And here we have ICE just coming along and sweeping people away.
So in that
And so
in that process of having, like, say, a visa, you're here temporarily, you were granted a visa. Is this a
Mhm.
courtesy that we extend that we cannot extend? I mean, are we allowing this to happen and still have the say so on that courtesy ending, or is it to the point?
Not only to a certain extent.
Okay.
You have, if someone is here on a visa,
Mhm.
right, full visa process, even if someone is here on temporary, well, no, let's not go there. That gets even, see, if I just go one shift one way, it complicates things.
Right.
So someone here on a visa has the right to due process.
Okay.
So you can't deport them without a deportation hearing. You don't just to go round and round
I see.
and grab people because, you know, they look
Mhm.
Mexican.
Right. Right.
It's just not how it works.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not who we are.
Right.
I mean, what makes America great is not a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the fact that we can get food stamps that makes us great, or cell phones, or the fact that we can even start a business that makes us great. What makes us great is that we decided at the very get-go that government was limited and people's rights mattered, and that you can't take someone's property, you can't take someone's liberty without due process. And we established that all on the basis of liberty, that everyone is innocent until proven guilty.
Mm.
Now,
Okay.
we've got this idea that only people who are citizens have rights.
Mm-hmm.
That's not true. Absolutely not true. If that were true, then anybody who came to America that was murdered
Mm-hmm.
by a U.S. citizen would not have a right to or beaten up by a U.S. citizen wouldn't have a right.
Yeah, that's a
as a
fair
victim.
point. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Right? I mean,
Mhm.
it's just
Right.
ludicrous. And I have all these politicians coming against me. Oh, KrisAnne doesn't worry about the victims. Right? Okay, so the ironic thing is all of the illegals who have committed crimes have gotten trials.
Mm-hmm.
And now we want to go and round up people and punish them for what illegal people did without even proving that they're illegal.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Yep.
And I mean, we're talking about people who, and as I have practiced immigration law now for years, and
Mhm.
you have people who've spent thousands of dollars and years of their time and resources to be here. It just, you
Right.
have to, due process is not something that's just guaranteed by the U.S. Constitution to citizens. It's something that is applied by law, by Congress. So if you have a visa, you're here on legal terms, you have not committed a crime,
Mm-hmm.
and they want to deport you, you have the right to due process.
So what you're saying, really, and that's intriguing, is you're going bigger picture. You're saying that
Yes.
they intentionally did this so that they could serve up this, we get to choose who gets rights and who doesn't, on a big picture
Yeah.
scale. Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely, because you have,
I see.
generally speaking, it's the conservatives in society that are always defending the Constitution and the rights of the people. Well, now you've created a crisis, right?
Right.
You have created a crisis in which the American conservatives are begging for bigger government and begging for the government to have the right to pick and choose who gets rights.
Right.
But when in reality, these lawsuits are really garnered to protect those who haven't entered illegally from being unlawfully removed or denied due process. And I have these conversations with young prosecutors that I trained up, right?
Mm-hmm.
America chose liberty. We built a system where people are innocent until proven guilty to protect the innocent from unjust punishment. Because my young prosecutors would get really angry when a defendant they knew did something wrong got off on a technicality, right?
Right.
I'm like, that technicality is there for a reason, so that an innocent man is not put into prison on a technicality. if it's a bad person, you're
Mm-hmm.
going to get another shot at them. It's a behavioral thing. It's not, oh, I slipped up and robbed a store. It's a behavioral thing. They're going to break the law again. But we cannot have a system that works under the rule of men rather than the rule of law. So now all of a sudden, innocent people get unjustly punished.
Right.
We can't let a crisis turn us away from a nation of laws into people who are ruled by crises.
Right. Well, I love the point, and we're going to get stung by it, and that's why the setup. So, all right, and
I really think so.
Yeah.
I mean, for real, and it's a very sad thing because we forget in history we already been there.
Right. No, you're right. You're right.
I mean, we allowed a president to issue an executive order during World War II to round up U.S. citizens because their genealogy was Japanese.
Yeah,
and
you're right.
we had full families, people born and died there. People lived there for 4 years without due process.
Yeah.
And we said that was okay.
Okay. Well, we have about a minute left. Did you want to comment? They're close. I guess they're going to be split on the decision of the school district, the charter school, the Catholic charter school. Did you want to comment?
Yeah. So charter schools are paid with tax dollars.
Mm-hmm.
So the question is going to become, if the government collects money from people of many different faiths and even from those with no faith at all, can it then use that money to fund schools that teaches the doctrines of only one religion? Or if it allows one religious charter school, does it then have to fund charter schools for every faith equally, from Islamic madrasas, Hinduism, atheism, Satanism, in order to remain faithful to the First Amendment?
Wow. It's a bigger
because
case than
religious
people
charter
think.
schools, you're going to have to pay
Right.
for madrasas. That's just the way it's going to go.
Wow. So what do you think happens?
If it splits, then it'll go to the Supreme Court, back to the Supreme Court of Oklahoma, which denied it.
Right. And is that a good move?
I think it's the right move.
Yeah.
I mean, that'll
Probably.
get me backlash from Christian people.
But the bigger picture is what
I
you're
love
saying.
liberty.
All right. KrisAnne Hall, always fascinating. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you.
I hear every day about the products you all wish MyPillow carried. Well, guess what? We probably do. Slippers, bathrobes, pet beds, blankets, mattresses, sleepwear, loungewear, duvets, comforters, pot holders, aprons, oven mitts, and so much more. And they're all on sale. For example, get our best-selling standard MyPillows for only $14.98. Body pillows, $29.98. 6-piece bath towels or kitchen towel sets, just $29.98. Multi-use MyPillow 2.0s with pillowcase, $9.98. Save $40 on our Spring Percale and Giza Dream bedsheet sets. Any size, any color, and so much more. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save up to 80% on all MyPillow products. And I've never done this before. When you spend $100 or more, you're going to get 2 standard MyPillows absolutely free.
Love it. Never been to Spain. I've never been to Spain. Power's back on in Spain. The guy over the problem refuses to leave, and such interesting things going on around the world. Welcome back to the show, and a big thank you for KrisAnne Hall. It's not easy. I know. Trust me. It's not easy going against the bulk of what conservatives feel and what we're told and how we're told to feel and everything else. And I like it that she's willing to kind of go up against that and say, well, look at the principle, because the principle will come back to bite us. The principle is going to affect us, and that this is a long game that they're playing. And, you know, I think also that lends itself to just about everything that I have to talk about too. I also have Ron Paul in the next hour, and just a couple of things to go over. So number one, allfamilypharmacy.com/Kate. It's such a phenomenal way to get the scripts you need, the refills you need, the refills you want. You want to have things on hand. You don't want to be blindsided. Just make sure you have those extras. Order as much as you want or as little as you want, which I really love. allfamilypharmacy.com/Kate and get the ivermectin and fembenzoyl. Get it for family members so that they can get rid of the cleanses. There was kind of this interesting clip, actually. I wasn't really going to play it, but now that I'm thinking about it, I probably should. But it was talking about the eyes and how, I'm not talking about allergies, but I'm talking about red, the blood vessels kind of breaking in the lower eye. There was an Indian doctor that said, well, that's parasites in the gut. And if they're in the upper white of the eye, right, kind of lift your eyelid up a little bit. If they're in the upper part, they're more connected to brain. So I thought that was kind of an interesting thing. I'll do more research on it, but I thought I'd tell you about it anyway. So why not? I also, there's a couple of things I want to talk about. And that case is going to be really interesting, by the way, the one that she was talking about. They are, looks like they're divided over the Catholic virtual charter school bid to become the country's first religious charter school. And I think she's right on the money, though, on the principle of that. A lot of people are going to want this to happen. But then what happens to that big picture? If this were to go through, then Satan schools and, the Islam school and everything paid for by our tax dollars is not probably the direction that we want to go in, right? So a lot to think about when it comes to that. That's St. Isidore. This is it's a public school and therefore required under state law to be non-religious. The more we separate ourselves from government, the better, as far as that goes, the tentacles of government. And that's why she says that the charter school thing is kind of an interesting thing, too, just over the whole country, because it's tied to the Fed. It's tied to the Fed agenda and everything else. And the reason that I'm saying that as well is that there was a school that went like AI. OK, and this was being talked about because, what happens when a school goes AI and all of a sudden you have this situation where everything in the classroom is changing. And I thought that this was kind of an interesting story because this was the Alpha School, private pre-K through 8th grade institution. And it was utilizing personalized intelligence to teach an entire day worth of core academic lessons in just 2 hours. And one of the things that I think we're not realizing is some motivations from the department, Linda McMahon, the Department of Education, in aiding this, expanding this. You're taught by artificial intelligence. The teachers are kind of a guide that kind of stand back, and you're just solely taught by AI. Now, I don't want woke messaging in the schools. I don't want the teacher standing up and LGBTQing RSVP all day long, right? I don't want that either. So I wouldn't put your kids in public school anyway. But it's kind of interesting. I'll come back on this in just a moment and tell you what I think on this as well. And a little bit on Doge. This is getting kind of interesting, the whole thing on Doge too. And then I have a guest coming on talking about Christianity, actually. Making a bit of a comeback as well. Be right back. Kate Dalley Show, KateDalleyRadio.com.
Well, hello, everybody. It's Annie Cyrus. Welcome to my art studio where all the magic happens. This is the station for painting, and that is the station for all the resin art I do. If you want to check out my art, all you gotta do is go to lutfstudio.com. But I'm sure, or at least I hope, I'll see you at lutfstudio.com.
Phone lines are open. 888-673-1450. 888-673-1450. I have a guest joining me in the next segment of the show. But you can call in right now, 888-673-1450. And also go to Kate Talks About Everything on TikTok, on Instagram. You can find me there. And also on the website, you can listen live, katedalleyradio.com, and X American News. You can find me there on X, the show. Actually, you can watch the show on video every night at 6:30 Mountain, 8:30 Eastern. And, geez, there's just so many things. I'm trying to think. MyPillow.com. The Rev drinks are amazing, by the way. I just wanted to say the Rev drinks are really, really good. So, okay, I want to kind of tell you just a few things. By the way, on My Pillow, just use the code word Kate, and they do have phenomenal Mother's Day gifts because we're in May, and got to get that ordered, and 80% off. I mean, honestly, they're almost giving it to you. And the Rev drinks, the brain power drinks, the cognition, memory, they're phenomenal. I'm telling you, blueberry is my favorite. So just saying. Okay. So President Trump signed an executive order to integrate AI into K through 12 classrooms nationwide. To actually, what was described was to cultivate the tech-related expertise in future generations. But I'm not quite sure why they couldn't learn that elsewhere. Why it has to be firmly planted in the classroom. But there are, like this school, the Alpha School, taking it to a whole new level. And of course, Linda McMahon, the Department of Education Secretary, prioritizing the use of AI in its discretionary grant programs for teacher training too. And not that I'm afraid of AI, it's just that it's going to take center stage. And I just always thought that we need to learn the basics in school, and we've gotten far from the basics, it seems like, It's okay if it's a little side player, like we had to learn computers or we had to learn typing, but my gosh, I mean, I don't want it to take center stage as it's being proposed to do. So, hi caller, welcome to the show. Go right ahead.
Hey, Kate.
Hi.
I was just wondering if you could ask Ron Paul about the transactability of gold. He's the one that woke me up to the whole Federal Reserve thing.
Yeah.
So,
he's
I really
great.
trust Ron Paul, and I campaign for him, and I'd really like to hear what he's got to say about the transactability of gold. So.
Okay. Thank you so much. Really appreciate the call. Look, here's the deal. I had to pre-record it. So I will play it in the next hour. Due to his schedule, he had some things going on with his wife. But I did ask him some pretty pointed questions. And, I'll never forget, I interviewed him. It was probably the third or fourth time. And he's always honest. He's just so honest. I love that about him and really respect him, Ron Paul. And he was talking about Romney, and he was talking about how, Romney was looking at cue cards, and he had his whole marketing team around him, and they were working on his makeup. And when they were running for president, and they were about to go in front of the cameras, and Ron Paul's over there eating soup. He he's just not into all that. He just wants to explain things, and if asked a question, he'll answer it. And as they went out onto that worldwide stage, Romney was worried about how he was going to answer the question, and I would imagine, just after having to talk about Romney for all these years and him evading 3 of my interviews because he found out I was going to ask real questions. And he did that at the last minute. I have to say, pretty manipulative guy, Romney. And so Ron Paul just really stands out. He's probably one of the only ones in the last 50 years that could actually hold his head high after being in the DC swamp and know that he tried to do what he could do to stop it. That's my feeling on Ron. I think that he is Dr. Paul. I think he really, he's really great at just saying, well, these are the principles I espouse. So I really like that about him. And you'll see in the interview too, how he answers all those questions. I mean, he's just fantastic. And I also want to talk about eggs for just a second, if you'll allow me to do that. By the way, on the school thing, before I get off of that subject, they were just talking about how they were working on the masteries of AI, and that they could go home and be up till midnight on the computer. I mean, all day long, they were just on the computer all day. And I don't know that that's good. It was a limited day, but then they could go home and work on things on the computer, and everything was, it's It's an AI school. You have a guide rather than a teacher. I don't really know what that actually means practicality wise, but they were just overlooking the environment, I guess, to make sure nobody had problems. That was kind of the new teacher in that South Texas campus. So just kind of letting you know, it was a weird story. It came out a few days ago. It was just bizarre that the school day just looks a whole lot different. But we kind of knew that was coming, didn't we? We kind of knew. On eggs, this is kind of interesting too. You know, the egg prices reached this record high, right? And we're all still stuck with this. But it was an article that struck me about gouging consumers. And they were like, oh, they're gouging consumers, and Cal-Maine and these different companies are going to get millions of dollars, $22 million in avian flu relief last year because they culled, 115 million egg-laying chickens, right? For no apparent reason, by saying they had the avian flu outbreak, which I actually do not believe that's the case. But it's interesting because of two different responses. Here we go. And this was in the article, and I went, okay, is this why one of the reasons they did this? The Defense Production Act is up for reauthorization this year, and Congress could strengthen this price gouging ban to prohibit companies from profiteering, because, that's the bad guy, right? From profiteering by charging unfairly excessive prices for products affected by pathogenic disease like avian flu or other similar constraints. They want us to set up the Defense Production Act for reauthorization this year with a prohibiting companies to charge more if the government comes in and culls the herd. Wow. The other thing was this: for much of the 20th century, this article says, the government routinely intervened to protect consumers from high prices and inflation. When inflation largely abated from the 1980s through 2020, we lost that policy muscle. Okay? We lost that policy muscle. So therefore, and I have to go to a break in just a few minutes, but therefore, what it's saying is we have returned to an era of affordability crisis, supply shocks, sellers' pricing power, and we have to crack down on overcharging the ag giants taking taxpayer handouts, and that would be a good place to start. So before I go to break, I've got a guest coming back. Brent Dusing is going to be with me. I just wanted to say that look at those two reasons as to why they are talking about the eggs and why the egg prices went up. They go in, they cull the herd. They want to have Congress go ahead and prohibit a company from charging more if the government goes in to cull their herd. And I don't even think they actually have to prove that they're doing it for an actual huge reason. They just have to say pathogenic disease is found somewhere, or some sort of symptom or something, or some similar supply constraints. So when we're looking at big picture, just like KrisAnne Hall, our constitutional attorney, said in the first clip of the show, just like that, there's always the big picture. And she spelled that out with immigration, what they truly want to do with that. And then you have the long-term plan with this was to interject what they wanted to interject into policy and making sure in regulations, and make sure that that Defense Production Act that's up for reauthorization this year actually puts in a lot of things to go after the ranchers and farmers, actually, is what I think. That's what I think. That's Kate talking, but it just surely seems to be several well laid out reasons as to why we've been hit with these ludicrous prices. But also, I don't think it's the company's fault as much as it's the ag going in to cull the herd. Be right back. Kate Dalley Show, KateDalleyRadio.com.
Hello, everyone. I'm excited to announce the next generation of energy drinks, Rev 7. It has no sugar and no caffeine. Instead, Rev 7 uses Go BHB. Go BHB is one of the body's primary ketones, and it provides the most efficient and clean fuel that your body needs. It also helps you stay energized all day with no crashes. Not only that, it produces 3 times more brain energy than sugar, which helps boost your memory, focus, and mental sharpness. It also helps reduce stress and helps balance your mood. Rev 7 does all that while being the best tasting energy drink ever. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save 20% today. I'm so sure you're going to love Rev 7. For a limited time, you get our introductory 3-pack absolutely free. I drink Rev 7 every day, and I absolutely love it, and so will you.
All right, I have a guest, and I just wanted to introduce him real quick. By the way, go to KateDalleyRadio.com for the podcast of the show. Over almost to 28 million on podcast listens. It's crazy. But I want to introduce Brent Dusing, and we're talking about Christian faith making a comeback. In fact, he's the founder and CEO of TruPlay, and it's a gaming platform, actually. And it's created to bring like high quality, fun, biblically sound entertainment to audiences, which I think is kind of cool, actually. So you might want to listen to this one because if you have somebody in your family that likes to do that, this might be such a better way to go about that. Brent, how are you?
I'm doing great, Kate. Good to be with you.
You too. Christian faith making a comeback in America. What do you think? Give me your thoughts.
Absolutely true. I mean, I think that we're in the beginnings of a revival. I think that there's a lot of people around the country doing a lot of great work. I think there are people coming to the Lord. You know, there have been some famous celebrity examples of that happened recently. Russell Brand comes to mind, Candace Owens and her faith, which has been good to see. But it's not just celebrities. You know, there's just a lot of people. I think because there's been a lot of darkness that's been so overt now, especially in content, in certain governmental decisions, that there's almost kind of a bifurcation between you're going to choose the dark or you're going to choose the light.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely. So tell me about what you've been doing. I mean, we're out there talking about this, and you're noticing young adults that are actually seeking moral order, right? And this is coming after the whole COVID thing. People are a lot more awake now and looking around and saying, wait, something's not right in the world. And so they're seeking this moral order.
Yeah, it's interesting. At TruPlay, you know, I'm not as concerned about what happened with COVID as I am, although there are things I don't agree with, but as I am with what's in content today and the state of the situation for children. So I'll give you some interesting facts for those who are listening. So anxiety, suicide, and depression rates are all-time highs for kids in America today. And a lot of that is driven by screens. The more time, for example, a young girl spends on social media, the more likely she is to be into depression. You know, drug use is up because drugs are legal in so many states now. And you know, pornography usage and things like that are way up. And then the worst stat of all is only 31% of children believe in God. And so we're compared to 68% of people over 45. Right. So we're losing an entire generation of children. And it's because they're on screens 50 hours a week and they're getting a lot of toxic content, you know, very sexual messages pushed on very young children. You know, as you're well aware, you know, hyper violent content, demonic content. And so what we've built at TruPlay is really an answer to that. It's a gaming platform. It's live. You can download it on the App Store, the Google Play Store today. It's got over 100 hours of content, really, really high quality, beautiful video games. We got also some digital comics and some videos, and every piece of content that we make is based on biblical principles, whether it's telling a Christian story or a bunch of new characters we created who go on these fantastical adventures, but are also growing in their relationship with God in various ways. It's an excellent platform that we're finding parents and children just love.
I love that. We need a lot more resources. I had Connor Boyack on talking about the Tuttle twins and introducing new books and principles to kids. And I always love resources. So I love that you're actually doing gaming, but it's based on biblical. I think I don't know. We need more of this because if our kids are you know, they're even going to a friend's house, they're going to do these, you know, things, they're going to be on gaming and things like this. I mean, what a great way to sort of interject message to them and give them something else to focus on other than what gaming was kind of originally designed to do. I think this is phenomenal. I like it.
Well, yeah, I appreciate that. You know, we're just seeing great feedback from, you know, moms and kids and seeing, you know, some children who've never been exposed to the Bible before or other kids who are having their faith strengthened because, you know, we have characters in our games. Now they're going on big adventures with, monsters and sword fights and spaceship battles and laser beams and really fun adventures in these games. But the characters are also dealing with things like, one kid's getting bullied at school. Another kid, his brother passed away a year ago and he's trying to process it. Someone else is adopted. And so they're dealing with hard issues children deal with, but in constructive ways, in ways that are based on the Bible. They're, the characters pray to God, and some of the characters are Christians and some are not. Everybody's on a journey, right? And they're on these, and their hearts and their relationship with God changes and develops as they play through these adventures.
I love this. This is really great. And when you can leave having fun and doing games and doing all of this with a sense of like a good feeling, there's a good spirit to it. I can only imagine after spending like 5 hours of gaming where all you're doing is shooting people, what that must feel like. So to be able to leave, it's kind of like leaving a good movie with a good message. You leave uplifted. And I think this is the first I've ever heard of somebody leaving uplifted after gaming. I love this.
Well, thank you. It's interesting because screens really are the battlefield for the mind and soul. When you think about what Jesus did, he went and met people where they were, right? He went to a wedding party and go to dinner with people or go to the hillsides or where people were working, right? Or on the fishing dock.
Right.
Well, now the average kid's on a screen 50 hours a week. So you want to change hearts and minds, you got to be where people are. And they're gaming. I mean, a lot of people don't realize almost 10 times as much money were spent on video games on phones and tablets than on movie theater box office tickets.
It's amazing. That is amazing.
And so we just feel like, hey, look, we're losing a generation. Let's go reach kids, but we're going to build something that's beautiful and fun and exciting. And our parents and kids who are customers are telling us they love it.
Oh, I think that's great. I'm all for resources. I'm seeing The Chosen, played in movie theaters, and we've interviewed the producers of The Chosen and all of these great resources. I know that people are frantic for these kinds of things, and I think it's really nice to be able to see a comeback of those things. And then with this added in, this is the first I've seen of this, and I really, really applaud you for putting something out that's good, that's decent, that's wholesome for kids. And if us parents have more resources, if we have better and more things that we can turn to, I know parents are really concerned out there, but I'm also seeing the wave as well as you are too. And I think it's just a really positive thing. How can people find you and find these games?
Yeah, you can find TruPlay on the App Store or the Google Play Store. It's TRUPLAY. So TruPlay, drop the E. You can also go to our website at TruPlay Games. You'll see we've been endorsed by a lot of great people, including Billy Graham Association, Mike Huckabee, Kim Walker-Smith. Riley Gaines just endorsed us a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I had her on the show.
She's fantastic.
She's great.
So you'll see a lot of people that have done a lot of great work who are on board with our movement, which is, hey, look, we've got to have better outcomes for kids. It's not easy being a parent.
Yep.
I'm a parent.
Yep.
So we kind of stand with parents today and their kids, and
thanks, Brent.
We really hope that people like TruPlay.
Awesome. Thanks, Brent. Really appreciate you. And next hour, Ron Paul interview. Be right back on the Kate Dalley Show, KateDalleyRadio.com.
I hear every day about the products you all wish My Pillow carried. Well, guess what? We probably do. Slippers, bathrobes, pet beds, blankets, mattresses, sleepwear, loungewear, duvets, comforters, pot holders, aprons, oven mitts, and so much more. And they're all on sale. For example, get our best-selling standard My Pillows for only $14.98. Body pillows, $29.98. 6-piece bath towels or kitchen towel sets, just $29.98. Multi-use My Pillow 2.0s with pillowcase, $9.98. Save $40 on our Spring Percale and Giza Dream bedsheet sets. Any size, any color, and so much more. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save up to 80% on all My Pillow products. And I've never done this before. When you spend $100 or more, you're going to get 2 standard My Pillows absolutely free.
Candidates who won the primaries, as long as that took place and you had 2 candidates that were both acceptable to the international order, that is, that they aren't going to rethink NAFTA or NATO or what have you, we called that democracy. And so democracy was the illusion of choice, what's called magician's choice, where the choice is not actually, pick a card, any card, but somehow the magician makes sure that the card that you pick is the one that he knows. In that situation, you have magician's choice in the primaries, and then you'd have the duopoly field two candidates, either of which was acceptable, and you could actually afford to hold an election. And the populace would vote, and that way the international order wasn't put at risk every 4 years, because you can't have alliances that are subject to the whim of the people in plebiscites.
We will fight hard to defend the freedom of opportunity that makes the American dream possible. We will fight hard for the freedom to vote.
All right, welcome, Kate Dalley Show, back here with you. And wow, first hour was fun. All right, let's move on to the Ron Paul interview. We had to pre-record because of schedule constraints, and he had some things going on with his wife. And he's so sweet. I really, I think this was his seventh or eighth visit to the show, maybe the eighth. Anyway, I've had him coming on. He and Rand actually came on the show. Oh gosh, starting out a decade ago, and then he's continuously come on, and I've really appreciated him because he'll just say it like it is, and you got to love it. All right, so Ron Paul, without further ado, he does speak to Real ID. I did ask him how the presidency is controlled, how much it is, and boy, by the way, Ron Paul's turning 90. Yeah. In August. So nuts. I looked that up, and my mouth dropped because I know how busy he is, and he's just amazing. Here we go. Ron Paul. Dr. Paul, you're turning 90 in August, and I could not believe that because you do not appear to be 90 years old. So I don't know what your health tricks are, but I love that you're that age, but you look like you're 70 years old. This is amazing.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I feel good.
Your homeschool curriculum is still going strong, too.
Yes, and that, of course, I consider very important. That if there's a lasting result from some of the things I've done, that might be the one that I won't even be seeing it. But if that lives and thrives, I find that to be the answer to so many of our problems.
Yes, 100%. I wanted to ask you this question, and I do want to talk to you about Doge as well. But can a president in this day and age do anything independently of the deep state? Do you feel like they can in any way?
Yeah, independent, you mean if you're president, what can you do?
Yes.
Outside of the legislative process?
Just outside of the deep state direction going on behind the scenes. Yeah.
That's a good question because there was a time when I was convinced Trump could avoid that, but it doesn't look like he is. It looks like there's some infection, some control even on Trump.
Right.
Hold on a second.
That's what I think too. And so I'm watching all of this unfold, and it just seems as though the deep state is extremely busy, and many people think that the deep state has been eradicated. And so when you're looking at what they're calling the dream team, and you're looking at what's actually happening, is there anyone that you have faith in right now?
Well, there's a certain senator I can depend on.
Exactly.
It is a certain congressman by the name of Thomas. I can depend on him.
Yes.
No, but as outsiders go and pundits, no, I think there's some good people out there. I think there are, some libertarian thinking, on civil liberties that are good. There's always some good people really understanding it. They're there. Matter of fact, I think that's where I'm more optimistic, is that there are a lot of people. There's been an influence of groups like the Mises Institute. There's a lot more people who believe and understand that philosophy than there were 20, 30 years ago when I went to Congress.
So
I think it's happening, but they're just not apparent. The other people that the deep state likes, they get the coverage and makes them think that they're running the world.
Oh, so true. Absolutely. When you speak to the right-left paradigm, what do you tell people now as far as all the things you've learned about the right-left paradigm that we seem to be engaging in all the time, and it doesn't seem like we're getting anywhere? It seems like the goalposts just keep going in one direction. And so the right-left paradigm, would you speak to that?
Well, yes, because we can turn that around. I think the goal, once they understand that the goal of the Marxists is to cause chaos in the streets, and then you look at what happened under COVID and all these other problems of the stupid laws that are passed, and this polygenderism and men competing against women and winning all the medals. It's insane. I think most people would think it's nuts, and yet I think every time you hear these crazy stories, we gain more supporters. If they hear our message, they say, maybe those people are right. It is a crazy world. So I think there are as bad as it is, I think there are more people all the time getting disgusted and starting to look toward us to get their opinions.
Yeah, absolutely. Would you go back into Congress now if you could?
No, not under my conditions now. I probably, if you say, would you do what you did before? Well, I never ran for Congress. I got fascinated with Austrian economics and really motivated to speak out about the monetary system of the Federal Reserve, because I still consider that. So I didn't do that. I didn't run for Congress to be a congressman. I ran for Congress because in 1974, there were no Republicans anywhere to be seen. There were only 3 Republican congressmen in 74. So my goal was to speak out. The Republicans were saying nothing, and they said, "Well, somebody's going to say something and run for something." So it was sort of a fluke, an accident. But I found out that there was an audience there, and I was encouraged. But after 6 years, I was tired of it, and I wanted to go back to medicine. I went back to medicine for 12 years, but still the rumbling and the noise, things were getting worse, and I kept getting more attention on what I was saying, that they finally got me to do it again. So it led one thing to another. So any place I saw a place to spread a message, I usually went in that direction, and I didn't have a plan. When I was in college or later on, I said, I know how to get to Congress. So when young people come to me, they say, "Ron, I want to do what you're doing. I want to become a congressman. How do you raise the money and how do you run it?" I said, "Don't run for Congress. That's not what you're supposed to be doing."
Yeah.
Leonard Reed always said, what you do is you self-educate. You find out what you believe in, talk about the message, and you don't have to go and badger people and beg people for money and all. The people that agree, and there will be people agree, they will come to you. And I think that's so true that I notice even I will do that. If there are some local elections going on, there might be one person that's up on this, and I trust. We go to that individual. So that was what I think was in operation. I spent my time doing exactly what Leonard Reed suggested. You understand the message and understand how to deliver the message, and people will seek you out. If not, just accept it as a fate. But our job is to educate ourselves and try to change things for the better.
I agree. The people are going to have to be the answer here, I think. I'm in complete agreement with you. And when you think about Doge, what are your thoughts on Doge?
Well, I was a skeptic from the beginning. I don't think it hurt anything other than the fact that it fizzled. I think the biggest benefit, I still think it exists because it did wake up a lot of people. I think this example of USAID, the atrocious amount of money and the waste and the goof of things, more people know about that. A lot of us knew about it. I'm sure you knew about it. Yeah. But the whole thing is with the advertisement that Elon provided for this and Trump, I think it was great. The disappointment now is flowing back in because it looks like the election hasn't had a tremendous effect. When you look at what they're doing in the budget right now, it's atrocious.
Right.
And it's the Republicans' fault.
Yes.
Today the announcement about tremendous increase in the military budget. I mean, this is just an outrage.
Oh, I completely agree. And so as far as Real ID, I know that you've been outspoken about this, and I've actually played a clip on the show about you talking about it 30 years ago, 40 years ago. So tell me your thoughts on Real ID.
Yeah. Well, I think it's another thing that probably is a lot worse than the Patriot Act.
Yeah.
So it's just another attack on our personal liberty for governments to know everything conceivable. FinCEN was sent out an effort to make their regulations much more invasive to every single person two people, if they were in business, they had to fill out tons of forms. And there was resistance to that, and they had to back off. So that's what we have to have, resistance to this nonsense. But I think we have to do that for educational purposes, for people to know what's going on. But I don't work on the assumption that, well, if we could just get 20 more people in the Congress, everything is going to shift and we'll go in a different direction. I never right. believed that. I think we're beyond that. But that doesn't, I might say, well, why are you working so hard to try to change it? Because I think it's going to come down on us. I think there's going to be a struggle on who's going to take over. And for me, it's what philosophy is going to take over. Are we going to be more sympathetic to what the founders taught and wrote about and what we were all about? Or are we going to roll over and let the Marxists take over? And believe me, the Marxists know exactly what's going on. And I think that's our greatest threat.
Yeah. I'll come right back. I've got more with Ron Paul, the interview. And yeah, he is turning 90. And you can't tell, can you? He looks fantastic. And by the way, I do have a piece on Doge as well. It's interesting how the mainstream was all set to say it fizzled, it's done, and Elon had to go and make money, and so now it's all over. I do have more on that as well. Some interesting insights on that too. Back with Ron Paul in just a moment. Kate Dalley Show, KateDalleyRadio.com. Kate talks about everything on Instagram and TikTok. Be right back.
Well, hello everybody, it's Annie Cyrus. Welcome to my art studio where all the magic happens. This is the station for painting, and that is the station for all the resin art I do. If you want to check out my art, all you gotta do is go to LUTFstudio.com. But I'm sure, for at least I hope, I'll see you at LUTFstudio.com.
All right, glad to be with you. Ron Paul interview in this hour. And I also wanted to tell you the reason I love the Cozy Earth sheets so much, CozyEarth.com, is when you pull them out of the dryer, they go cool to the touch and they're just phenomenal that way. But it's like you just bought them, like every time. So every time I wash them, I pull them out, and I don't know how they do it, but they actually get softer and cooler. It's the weirdest thing, but they are so amazing. It's bamboo viscose. And the gal in your life, the mother, the wife, will love them. I'm serious, will love them, and get to crawl into them every night. So the sheets are 40% off. Use the code Kate. You'll love it. And they're to die for. They're luxury on luxury. Okay, CozyEarth.com, and put in the code Kate, and then you're also helping Truth in Radio and helping me stay on the air because it's getting slim pickings out there. All right, as far as truth in media goes, as far as truthful talk show hosts go. Okay, so here's back to the Ron Paul interview. We had to pre-record because of timing stuff. Here we go. They create a problem and then they deliver the solution that's already planned.
Talking about those.
And so it's interesting with Real ID that there is really no problem. They're just coming up with this solution. Have you been surprised that they haven't created some sort? There's just no reason for them to do this, and people aren't even questioning it, which really surprises me. The vast majority. So
Well, they're doing it not like to solve a problem. They're doing it to build their empire and more control over the people.
Right.
And that's what they're doing. They have to know everything about everybody. And if you look at a communist systems, I mean, this was all that they spent their energy on, and it was all based on lies. The people there, really knew about it. They just didn't have any organization to overcome it. But the magnificent thing about what happened there was the system was not workable, and it collapsed. So I always marvel over the fact that the Cold War ended. Just it faded away. It was done. It had nothing to do with bombs. And I was drafted during the Cold War and all that kind of stuff. And they fought all those wars. And the failure had to do with a failed philosophy. So communism doesn't work. And to me, it's unbelievable that there was no exchange and that somebody didn't hang in, because every time there was some resistance prior to that during the Cold War, they were suppressed rather quickly. And I think that's why I think it's in the area of informing people. And we have a vehicle. We have the internet and other things that cause a lot of troubles for us, but it also gives what I'm doing an opportunity to reach more people. Right. And I put stuff out there. I don't know where it's going. I don't even understand the system very well. But all I know is sometimes I put stuff out there and people look at it. And so the messages get out there now. That's what's happening now. So I'm not a pessimist long term, but I'm worried about the transition, because right now I think the evidence of this thing coming down and hitting hard, and the whole thing is I think all the promises and the optimism of the current administration is going to fizzle, and there's going to be a shift on the short run politically. But I still think that the opportunity for us to get our message out is increasing. I think our support is increasing. So I work on a positive assumption that there's reason to be hopeful.
Well, I think you're a realist, and I think that you're right in saying it's always going to come down to us, and we're always the answer, but we always want the answer to be something else, right? That doesn't point to us. So in medicine specifically, looking back at COVID and all of the lies and everything that we were told and our liberties being stripped from us, I know that you probably realize that we haven't done anything about that. Those things are still on the books. We haven't changed that emergency type of thing, unless we have. Have we in any state changed anything that locked people down in 2020 unjustly?
No.
We're going to answer that right when we come back, because of course we have a break, and I'll be right back. Kate Dalley Show, of course. And it's we should be asking a lot of questions right now. And I can't believe the Real ID. It's just, for what reason are they doing this? Right? There is no reason. And they're just getting away with just implementing this thing. It's crazy. Be right back on the COVID topic with Dr. Ron Paul when I come back. Kate Dalley Show, KateDalleyRadio.com.
Hello, everyone. I'm excited to announce the next generation of energy drinks, Rev 7. It has no sugar and no caffeine. Instead, Rev 7 uses Go BHB. Go BHB is one of the body's primary ketones, and it provides the most efficient and clean fuel that your body needs. It also helps you stay energized all day with no crashes. Not only that, it produces 3 times more brain energy than sugar, which helps boost your memory, focus, and mental sharpness. It also helps reduce stress and helps balance your mood. Rev 7 does all that while being the best tasting energy drink ever. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save 20% today. I'm so sure you're going to love Rev 7. For a limited time, you get our introductory 3-pack absolutely free. I drink Rev 7 every day, and I absolutely love it, and so will you.
Is that a throwback or what? Welcome back, Kate Dalley Show. I love the T3 mineralization. Get that product. It's right on my website, and whiten your teeth naturally. It is incredible because it actually does a better job than the chemicals that they usually serve up to you to do that. I'm serious. It's incredible. And see my white pearly teeth. The remineralization's amazing. Go get that. Also, FIQsupplements.com is where I get my supplements. I take cod liver oil because they have the finest. They sell the purest product. And I do it in like those caplets. They're amazing. Anyway, all kinds of things, vitamin C, vitamin D, everything. Go to FIQsupplements.com. And then, of course, allfamilypharmacy.com/Kate. Allfamilypharmacy.com/Kate. Have things on hand, okay? I really think you'll thank yourself for that. I really do. So I asked Ron Paul, what about, everything's still on the books, the emergency orders, all the governors made sure everything is still there from COVID and the stripping of freedom. So I asked him about that, and he's about to answer. Here we go. This is back to Ron Paul. Here we go. Whoops. Well, let me. It's live. What can I say, you guys? All right. Always something. It's always something. Here we go. Thing that locked people down in 2020 unjustly.
No, this is the evidence that the system, the election has sort of fizzled.
Yeah.
Still a lot more information and people understand. A lot more people understand, the pharmaceutical industry now and COVID and all these things, but it's still a long way to go on this. But this is I think, this is the way the system usually works. You can't get people to change their mind overnight, but it's setting the stage for it. So, the disgusting thing about this is that there's not been anybody charged with anything.
I know. Yeah.
They got pardons, but if they can get people before a committee, I would think, that they would have to answer the answers. But the Republicans haven't done a thing. Right. And sometimes you think, well, one person in the Congress would have the right to subpoena people. No, it's a big political deal about bringing somebody there and start inquisiting people on important matters. And I think they're stymied right there. But I still think we're a lot better off than we were in the middle of COVID, because the people did wake up. I loved it when they would have meetings. There was one huge meeting where the whole town showed up and they kicked the school board out and reelected a new one right then and there. So I think we just need more of that.
Yes, we do. And change things probably in the state, too, I would imagine. So state to state, right? States' rights need to make a comeback, I would imagine.
Yeah, I think that's a positive statement because take education. The notion here, and Trump says these things, right now we can't be sure what he's going to do, but he says originally it was supposed to be a state issue and we won't get rid of the system. We'll just turn the whole thing over to the states and they can like it or lump it, but they have to finance it. But there's a lot of special interest in that. And, they might be able to shift some things, but they'll end up fighting over the money. But that'll stop because the money will quit working. The same way on foreign policy. So even though this is a disaster about what's happening with the spending of all this money, it's actually a blessing in disguise because that's the way empires end. And I have no sympathy for our empire. I mean, that's the way the major empires ended. They got too bold. I mean, the Roman Empire extended themselves way too far, and they destroyed their money. So the Roman Empire dissipated. Took a long time, but it happened. And I don't think our empire is going to last as long as the Roman Empire did, though.
How soon do we get the digital tyranny that they are just chomping at the bit to come in and to take out the dollar to replace it?
I think they're doing that all the time, but since the bit currencies and the bitcoins and the crypto system, for money, I think there's a lot of fallacies in there, so I don't fear that. But I think somebody's going to wake up someday and find out that you have to have something real to be money, you have to be able to define the unit of account, and you have to be able to make sure that if we have to change the rules on all that if you want to prevent that, and that is that nobody's allowed to counterfeit, including the government.
Right.
We're not allowed to counterfeit. Why do we let the government counterfeit? It's strange.
So true.
But
So
it'll happen because the market, just like in the Soviet system, it'll quit working. But we don't know when that's going to come down. But it could come down quickly. The underpinnings of the system are rotting away. But somebody said, well, when do you think it's going to happen? Well, I don't know when it's going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen next week or next month.
Right.
But it could. But I think it could go on for a bit. But the day that it falls apart, the event, nobody can predict that event.
Will we go to war?
Precisely.
Right. Will we go to war? Are they dredging up a war?
I think they're always warmongering. Right now, it seems like they're using just threats. They're bits and powerful. I always argued our foreign policy is based on the fact that because we're the richest country, we have the most military and the strongest currency as of now, that we have our power to go around and throw our weight around. So we're in 120 countries with our military, and we're involved in all the coups, and we tell them what to do. And as long as they do it, we give them more money. But if they don't do it, we bomb them.
So true.
So that's the problem. But that's going to quit. That'll quit because right now they have to take a pause now because we used up all our bombs in Ukraine and the Middle East and keep giving the weapons away. And it has nothing to do with defense. Right. It has to do with manipulating and offensive activity. So that has nothing to do with real defense. Matter of fact, it undermines defense on what we have now.
Oh, amen to that.
All the money they spend in the military.
Yeah, amen to that. And then tariffs. What's your thoughts on tariffs?
Stealing, it's robbery, and the people suffer the most. It's a tax, and even the little bit of power that is giving in a cautious way in the Constitution, I'd probably try to eliminate that if I could, because I see it as a moral issue. If it's a protective tariff, see, we're supposed to hate the Chinese because they undersell us. And a pair of shoes made by Americans are $200, but the Chinese will sell them to you for $25.
Right.
Well, it's your money. Why can't you spend it wherever you want? So I see it as a personal liberty issue rather than this complication where they use it for all kinds of threats and a weapon to expand on the empire. That's where the problem is.
Finally, Dr. Paul, and I thank you so much for spending time with me. It really means a lot to me. You're one of my heroes, and I don't say that lightly. I wanted to ask you, what would you tell people right now that are feeling a little weary? They're a little tired. They're seeing the right-left paradigm, shoved in our face every day, and they're trying to. They know that the weight of the deep state. Tell them what can they do. What can they do? What can somebody do right now to help out?
Well, they have to look to some of the things we just talked about that are positive. The spreading of the message. There are more people on our side, and we have to realize that it's not exactly a numbers game. You don't have to wait until everybody, 51% are converted to what we're saying. What we have is have to have leadership, and that, of course, is undermining. And
I'll be right back. I'll replay that last minute, but I'll be right back. But he's so right on that. Ron Paul. Be right back. Kate Dalley Show, KateDalleyRadio.com for this podcast as well on the homepage. Be right back.
I hear every day about the products you all wish My Pillow carried. Well, guess what? We probably do. Slippers, bathrobes, pet beds, blankets, mattresses, sleepwear, loungewear, duvets, comforters, pot holders, aprons, oven mitts, and so much more. And they're all on sale. For example, get our best-selling standard My Pillows for only $14.98. Body pillows, $29.98. 6-piece bath towels or kitchen towel sets, just $29.98. Multi-use My Pillow 2.0s with pillowcase, $9.98. Save $40 on our Spring Percale and Giza Dream bedsheet sets. Any size, any color, and so much more. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save up to 80% on all MyPillow products. And I've never done this before. When you spend $100 or more, you're going to get 2 standard MyPillows absolutely free.
So happy about that. And the interview with Ron Paul in this hour. So I'll head back to that. And of course, go to the website. The sponsors, the products that I pick for a reason. It's because I use the products. I love the products like FAQ supplements or My Pillow or Cozy Earth or allfamilypharmacy.com. I use them, and that's why I love to tell you about them. The remineralization of teeth, and these are all things that you can use in your life that'll make your life better. Otherwise, I wouldn't use them. So go to the website, help me out there, and really appreciate you. And of course, you can watch this on X America News in the evening, on Rumble, you name it. It's on Rumble every evening. So, all right, let me go back to this interview and finish up here with Ron Paul. And I'll replay that question. Here we go. Tell them what can they do? What can they do? What can somebody do right now to help out?
Well, they have to look to some of the things we just talked about that are positive. The spreading of the message. There are more people on our side, and we have to realize that it's not exactly a numbers game. You don't have to wait until everybody, 51% are converted to what we're saying. What we have is have to have leadership, and that, of course, is undermining and reversing the leadership of the progressive universities, and that's why I'm involved in homeschooling. So, no, there's a lot of positive things, and I think people love it. I was really given a boost during the presidential campaigns because it was the young people that came out. The young people loved it, and they were, even at major liberal universities, it wasn't like I get 100 people out. I mean, they were very interested, and that fascinated me. And that means that young people especially are very open to the ideas of freedom.
Can I ask you one last thing, Dr. Paul? As far as false flags go, do you feel like there is a certain false flag back in history that wakes people up more than others? Something that you feel like this should be an eye-opening event. Please do more research into this so that you can wake up to. Is there any event like that in history that you'd point to?
Well, I think the issue that finally works is the failure of the system they're working with. And to me, it's just basic education. And that's why people should know and understand something about Austrian economics. And so I see it all in this teaching. And I think that's improving outside of the subsidies by the government to the universities, which are a mess.
Okay, fair enough. I so appreciate you. Thank you for spending a few extra minutes. I really appreciate you.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
To be with you.
Yeah, it was really fun visiting with him, as it always is. And, he talked about the big system failure. And I think, if anyone's going to ask themselves, maybe a pointed question would be, if you are a party person, I'm in my party and I love my party and my party's got to win and party's got to do this and that. The failure of that system alone should tell us volumes that whenever we get the power, we don't really do much with it. And so why are we so concentrated on that, right? And that the goalpost has gone one way. And I also so that should be a visual enough for us, right? And that was sort of what I've been through the last decade, was the realization that it didn't matter when my party won, because there wasn't anything that was going to be done. We were just going to give a lot of excuses. And so, Ron Paul's a libertarian, and I value the things, the principles that he stands by. He's very genuine, very genuine. One of the listeners sent me a story, and this was from Alex, and said, if you haven't heard of this, they heard I was going to have Ron Paul on. If you haven't heard of this, about the pettiness of the deep state crowd holding up Ron Paul's flight back to Texas in a private plane for several hours when he left Congress. So as he was leaving Congress, there was a party waiting for him. and a big welcoming crowd was at his destination. But as the afternoon wore on, many had to return home to feed the kids after school. So the large crowd, dwindled by the time he arrived. And of course, lots of events like that, is where they lost confidence in the agencies of DC, but also the fact that that the K Street lobbyists stopped visiting Ron Paul because he couldn't be bought. So I thought that was it was a really great email. Thank you, Alex. And I really appreciate that. Look, there's just so many things there that were said to digest. And of course, the Real ID, the horrific parameters of that goes into effect pretty soon here, the end of the week, next week. And also just talking about Doge. Was Doge set up to fail? I know you don't want to hear this, but yeah. In fact, it was interesting. Vox, Vox is horrid. They're such a leftist group. And they did this thing where it said, well, he got rid of some federal employees and he looked into some programs and therefore now it's fizzled and didn't really do anything. It was never going to go after the root system because the deep state's going to protect the root system. So it wasn't meant to do that. And of course, on the left, they have the left so wound up about Elon, for all the wrong reasons, not because he's a front man, but because he's Elon. And it's so interesting, the dynamics of our behavior based on what the press tells us to think and feel. Always will amaze me. Always will amaze me. And then, of course, I talked earlier too about the egg prices and was it meant to do this because they want policies with the egg prices? What they're gearing for is the reauthorization of the act to help them give a lot of muscle to the fact that that companies can't raise their prices if the government comes in and culls the herd. So that was kind of interesting too. I'll take a last call. Hi, caller. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for the show, Kate.
You bet. Thank you.
Ron Paul is a straight shooter.
I know. I really like him. He always is.
I don't want anyone to be afraid of human nature, but I don't want them to disregard it either.
Okay.
Love you.
Love you. All right. Thanks. Thanks. Okay. With that said, oh man, so much more I could have talked about too on my list today. But look, Ron Paul, the real deal, and I also would have loved to have had a deeper conversation with him about a couple of those things. We were limited on time, but on the Cold War, which I have a lot of problems with the whole Cold War narrative. You guys know that, but also more on Doge too. Because there were articles that came out that said Ron Paul's finally going to get his audit, And I kind of laughed, and I'll bet you Ron Paul would say the same thing because he was skeptical from the beginning that they were actually going to go after the root system. But it brought some awareness, and he was happy about that. So, okay. All right. Be faithful. Be fearless. I'll see you back tomorrow. Be faithful. Be fearless. Go to KateDalleyRadio.com. Share it on social media.